Tell us, though, get us up to date on what you saw, what happened today with Lucas Patrick, and what is the deal with Tevin Jenkins in terms of his status for practice today?
Yeah, well, I wish I knew more about Tevin Jenkins. We're dealing with this new thing where the head coach doesn't talk every day, so there weren't really any answers given on why Tevin Jenkins wasn't there. Regardless, unless it's some weird thing where he had some other prior commitment that you can't control, and sometimes stuff like that comes up with family, they don't do him any service then by not announcing it, so you can only assume that it has something to do with, availability. It's not good for a guy that where availability was a problem right away as a rookie. So I don't want to read too much into it or speculate too much because we just don't know. But obviously, if that becomes a thing where he's not around for more than just one day, you start to worry. In terms of Lucas Patrick, didn't get a chance to see exactly what happened. It seemed like one of those injuries where you're able to finish the rep and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, why is that guy in there instead? Oh, the player's getting looked at by the trainer. So Lucas Patrick was all of a sudden getting looked at by the trainer, and then he walked off. Technically got in a cart to go back to Haugh, but Grote, as you know, they were on the backfields. Everybody takes a cart back when there's any kind of injury. So it did not look too serious to me.
Okay.
But maybe we'll get an update from Matt Eberflus tomorrow when he talks.
Adam, we took care of the speculation on Tevin Jenkins for you at the top of the show.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. We rampantly speculated on all sorts of possibilities because, frankly, it has seemed from the very beginning stages of any sort of off-season activities that they're not a believer in Tevin Jenkins. It's very easy to put all these things together. And, I mean, where would he be on the depth chart if there's a depth chart right now today? Would he even be the swing tackle right now if there were a depth chart based on what you've seen? If we're to trust our eyes and trust who they seem to trust, is he even the swing tackle as of today?
So based on what we saw in yesterday's practice when he was there, and it's a closed practice and we didn't have the greatest view in the world, but you're kind of making notes on what the depth chart might look like here and there. I thought he looked like yesterday, Tevin Jenkins looked like the most likely candidate to be the swing tackle. Off of one practice to start training camp, that was where I thought he was.
Okay, so that would be a backup for both right and left, and then Braxton Jones would be considered a project at left behind that, theoretically.
Probably, just based on the usage in one practice, and we'll see where that goes going forward, assuming he's actually back out there, Tevin Jenkins. But and then also where that it's in addition to being the backup at both spots, when you get in the jumbo sets and you put an extra offensive lineman out there, it looked like that's who that would be. Tevin Jenkins, so that would be a guy who's still active on game days. But look, the fact that we're still talking about this a year later, to your point, Spiegs, it's just not the best vibes that you're getting from a guy who was a high draft pick a year ago. You're not supposed to be this far into it wondering, hey, what is this guy going to be? You want to feel like we felt about Darnell Mooney after a season. Like, oh, this guy looks like a legit piece of the future. Or even a better example is just the 2 second-rounders from this year, Kyler Gordon, who we're talking about, hey, he could be a great option in the nickel today. Or Jaquan Brisker, who I'm already looking at like the floor is Adrian Amos with Jaquan Brisker. Like, that's what the conversation you want to be having about these second-round picks, not a year later going, man, why is he not even at practice on day 2?
I've been racking my brain to try to answer this question about Tevin Jenkins, and that is, what do you think the fatal flaw is in him? What is it that they have seen in Tevin Jenkins that he does not appear to be a guy that's going to start and consider, like, he was pretty good in college. He was projected by most as a first-round talent. Have you been able to figure out what the fatal flaw is in Tevin Jenkins?
Not yet. I hope a week from now after I'm hoping he's back and the pads are on and I can see. Here's the problem. Haven't seen him. Like, this feels like Kevin White in some ways because it's like, well, man, maybe he can play if he ever gets out there, but like if he wasn't even in camp last year.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. What are they evaluating him on? You know what I mean? He barely practiced. He barely played in games, yet this coaching staff is like, nah, no thanks.
So what I can really all we could look at last year from Tevin Jenkins, because once camp's over, we don't get to watch practice. Okay, so we didn't see him when practices were open. He doesn't play most of the season. Then he plays. Don't need to get in the whole coaching thing about, okay, they're leaving him on an island right away. Like, not a fair situation. And, oh, by the way, he had a back injury, his upper body strength. And, you want to give him all these excuses because they seem relatively fair. And then the next time we see him, it's the spring and early summer, and they're not even wearing pads. To your point, Grote, I don't know. It makes you – usually what I default into these situations, guys, is what's going on in meetings. What's going on inside the building? What's going on the moments where we're not allowed to see things or we don't get access to?
Yeah.
Just a random example, like Anthony Miller. Couldn't figure this out. Like, here's a flash, here's a good play, but why don't they seem to trust him? Well, when you're not paying attention to meetings and you don't know everything you're supposed to know, sometimes that's the answer you're looking for when you ask questions like that.
Wow. It's really interesting, and it's too bad that we're here this quickly on an asset like that, on seemingly a nice kid. But we'll see. We'll try to keep the speculation in the talk show portion, Adam, and keep that away from your required duties here on 670 The Score.
And I'll be back to my required duties on Monday, so I'll have to ditch this microphone for my reporter headphones.
Yeah. By the way, Grote, on that note, I was looking for you today because you told me a piece of information yesterday that was wrong.
Oh, boy.
You told me, and I'm not even going to bring it up on the air what specifically it was, but you told me there was somebody with the organization that was no longer there anymore.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Lo and behold, I'm looking at the practice field today, and he's standing right there.
Really? Okay. Well, then I got bad information from somebody.
I'm sorry, we're going to need details.
Who I am not going to call out, but I might have hosted with him recently. So Adam, all I could say is I am sorry. I am embarrassed right now, but I'm actually glad that the person is still out there. To tell you the truth.
Me too.
Yeah.
It was like one of those moments where I'm like, oh, you're still here. I'm so happy to see you. I was worried.
Wow. Well, I am sorry I sent you down that nightmare that he may not have been there.
Can I suggest that you guys handle that via text or phone call?
Yeah, I apologize.
Maybe as opposed to a 50,000-watt blowtorch, we're trying to entertain people.
This is revenge for you going off topic earlier when I was trying to talk about all the super fans on the Bears, okay?
Oh, yeah, I did.
So Hoge and I, we got a thing here.
Yeah.
So we just took care of it.
All right, well, good. Well, Adam, can you remember a time when there were more than 3 avowed hardcore diehard Bears fans on the roster like there are right now? You got Schofield and Kramer and Cole Kmet. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm thrilled about it, guys. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Sometimes.
Wait. Actually, I got a real question to come out of that.
You guys just carry on.
Who will out of those?
You guys.
Out of those 3 super fans,
like either of them,
who will play the most important part on the Bears? And I think it's down to 2 probably, but I don't know. Maybe it's down to 3. Which one of those 3 guys, Hoge, is going to play the most important part on the Bears this season?
Oh, it better be Cole Kmet, right? I mean,
Schofield's going to be a starting guard, right? So I don't know. I mean,
yeah, and it still looks like a hole until it's filled.
Yeah,
But look, Cole Kmet, another one of these second rounders, right? Now, in his case, with a tight end, you just look at the track record. Really, year 3, you can give him leeway, but once you get to year 3, you better break out. Just one practice, but he had a great day today, guys. I mean, he made some really good catches, the type of catches that, and I've always been I've been optimistic about Cole Kmet.
Yeah.
Still have been all offseason, but the one criticism I've continued to have is you need to go up and make some tough catches. You can't be dropping those passes. These good tight ends in the league, those are the catches they make. Today he made a couple, especially one up the seam that was probably the play of the day from Justin Fields, just a really good throw. So that was a good sign, I thought, between the connection between those two. And not only that, in this offense, the tight ends are going to be extremely important from not only being an outlet for the quarterback and have to catch the ball, but they're going to have to block in these outside zone schemes. So, we're not even close to being able to evaluate that with pads not being on, but that's where the answer to your question has to be Cole Kmet for me.
It better be. It better be. Adam Hoge, has anybody flashed to you of these veteran wide receivers in the very basics of, hey, look, that looks like an NFL wide receiver to play opposite Darnell Mooney?
I hate to say it, but no.
Oof, man.
No.
I mean,
And today was not great. You saw too many drops. Byron Pringle had a drop. N'Keal Harry, for a guy who yesterday was like, my strength is going up to get the football, he had 2 plays today where he could have gone up and got the football, and both efforts were not good to me. One, he just sort of fell backwards, didn't make the play. The second one, he just put one hand up in the air and tipped it up in the air, and Eddie Jackson picked it off. So I didn't like the effort on either of those plays to go up and get the ball. So I'm still waiting. I think this is my biggest concern. I love everything about Darnell Mooney. I love, again today, just the things he's saying, how he wants to say, I take every day like I'm a walk-on in college. Like, that's my mentality. So I'm very optimistic about Darnell Mooney. But beyond that, I still have a lot of questions.
Yeah, we haven't really seen this offense click at all in any of the offseason stuff. And then based on your eyewitness of it today, it sounds like today, though, Fields might have been fine. Like, how would you characterize Justin Fields' day?
I liked Fields today. Okay. Yeah. And I have high expectations. Like, I'm putting high expectations on him because I think it's fair to say that somebody drafted number 11 overall who should be the franchise quarterback should be able to show up and have a good training camp. I know we're not used to that in Chicago with the quarterbacks, but I don't think that that's a controversial statement to make. And for one day today, I thought he passed the test. I thought he was really good. Even some of the passes that ended up getting dropped, like the one I mentioned that got tipped to Eddie Jackson, that was a good ball. It was a good pass. And I want to bring up one thing that I am going back to. Okay, yeah, I have concerns about the wide receivers. But do you guys remember last year how much we talked about the lack of chemistry between Justin Fields and Allen Robinson?
Yes.
And a lot of it was due to the fact they didn't work together in training camp.
Yes.
But it carried over through the regular season and continued to be a problem. Okay, I am sitting here on day 2 of camp and making it perfectly clear to everybody listening right now, the Bears are already light years ahead between the starting quarterback and the number 1 wide receiver in terms of having that chemistry than they ever were at any point last season. And that is a positive that the Bears can hang on offensively right now when there doesn't seem to be many of them.
Mm-hmm.
That matters. Like, that's a legitimate thing that matters. And I like what I've seen early on between Fields and Cole Kmet too. So while there's a lot of questions elsewhere on the offense, those are 2 pretty important things there that I like where they're at, even though it is still July 28th.
See, this is the thing. Because of what Matt Nagy was trying to do and what he and Ryan Pace were both trying to do last year, so many things were out of sync and just didn't line up as intuitive ways for a young quarterback to be integrated into the NFL. Because they had Andy Dalton, and the plan was to give Fields the Mahomes treatment and not have him play until later. So he didn't get reps, which we went crazy about. But then he had to play because of the injury. So should he have been the number 3? Yada, yada. Like, all that stuff, all that chaos, it kept it from being normal. So just having a normal and aligned perspective here as you teach a young quarterback gives me reason for optimism that at least we'll be able to figure out if Justin Fields is any good this year. Doesn't that make sense?
Yes, I completely agree. To a point, because if he keeps having the other wide receivers drop the balls all the time, then you're going to be going, come on.
That's true. And also, like, if he's afraid to throw 50-50 balls up to N'Keal Harry because he thinks they're going to be tipped and intercepted, that's a big problem. So if he loses, confidence in those wideouts, that is a big problem. But we ought to be able to evaluate him in a cleaner way.
Yes.
I totally agree. And I think schematically that is going to happen. If you look at the track record of what the Bears are trying to piece together with their coaching staff and what Luke Getty is most likely to do, I feel very, very confident that once we start to see this get rolled out, and it probably won't even be really until the season starts against the 49ers. I don't think they're going to give too much away in the preseason. But you're going to see play action, which was something I tweeted out this morning, that the Bears ranked, what did I have, like 26, I think, in play action last season. Like, that's going to be something that takes a huge jump, like maybe even top 10 in the league in using play action this year. That should help Justin Fields a ton. Moving pockets, giving him more outlets to use the legs he has in a way that's still responsible, where he's not getting hurt, but taking advantage of that as a weapon. These are all things that it may just be that Justin Fields never becomes a great pocket passer with good timing, but you can still design offenses in a way where you can have success as a team with the strengths your quarterback does have. And if you just stand there stubbornly every single week trying to put him in a box that isn't really him, like we saw so much last season with that coaching staff, you can't expect to have good results. So I do feel confident that at least from that standpoint, once we get into September and we're having these conversations weekly about the offense, I don't think it's going to be the same type of conversations that we were talking about a year ago.
That's so important, man, because what it does do is it takes away a layer of excuses for Justin Fields, quite frankly. And he may have been, you mentioned the previous staff, and Matt and I have talked about that like how much culpability was there for the lack of progress for Justin Fields. Like what percent? And Matt was saying he's thinking like a big 70%, 80%. You really think he was dinged by the coaching staff? I don't go that far because I saw many areas where Justin Fields needed to improve, where he wasn't just put in a bad spot. How about you? Like, because I think it's still important to talk about this in terms of Justin Fields' development. How much do you think that the coaching staff hurt Justin Fields' development?
Look at what we're talking about. Even in this conversation, we're talking about the very basic idea of the quarterback having chemistry with the number one wide receiver in the offense. Like, how do you not establish that even if he's not your starter in training camp? Like, it just starts with that. It goes on to the scheme. I guess I look at it sometimes, Grote, from a glass half full standpoint, that he was able to have glimpses and the amount of success he still was. Like it overall wasn't great, but when you look at like games like the Steelers game on Monday Night Football and some of those throws he made and the ability to just not let anything really faze him with all of that nonsense going on, I look at that in a positive light, that he was still able to have the success he did within the parameters that he was given with all the issues. So I tend to lean more towards that. I really don't think they put him in a great position to have success, and yet he still managed to make you feel pretty good. Let's not lose sight of the fact that, and this goes nationally, because I felt it when I was at the Super Bowl this year and talked to a lot of people elsewhere around the league, not just in Chicago. The vibe was totally different than Mitch Trubisky coming out of his rookie year, where it was more like, I don't know about that one. This year was definitely more of, well, I like what I saw at times, and I think if he's put in a better position, he'll have more success. So I'm still optimistic.
Hope you're right.
Adam, how good could this secondary be? Like, I mean, I like Brisker. I like Kyler Gordon. We talked to him today. Enjoy him. And if Eddie Jackson is actually engaged and Jalen Johnson feels challenged, couldn't you have, 4 guys playing with a chip on their shoulder, possibly?
Yeah, I think it could be the most improved area of the team, to be honest with you. That was by far the biggest weakness on defense. It was, if you look at some of the analytical numbers, like they were really bad in the secondary last year, even though the defense as a whole wasn't terrible. And it got to the point where they only used nickel on like 55% of the snaps, which is still a majority, but compared to the rest of the league, like that's low. And that was because they didn't have the defensive backs. They were trying not to put that many defensive backs on the field when they could. So just adding Kyler Gordon, who I'm really intrigued by all of a sudden looking like a real option in the nickel, because we heard Matt Eberflus talk about how important that spot was. Kyler Gordon used the word quarterback today, quarterback of the defense for the slot corner position, and talked about how much he likes playing there. I find that really intriguing. And then I mentioned it earlier, like I just feel like Jaquan Brisker is – you just get these vibes sometimes with rookies that come in the league, whether they're on the Bears or other teams, and you just sort of look at them like, oh, yeah, that was a good pick. That just makes – in hindsight, that just makes a lot of sense. He looks like a pro. I really get that vibe from Brisker. And if all of that leads to – my thoughts on Jalen Johnson are well documented. I think he's really good. And if all of this leads to Eddie Jackson being in a position where they have to throw at him more because he's no longer – whether he's playing like it or not, he was always considered, when you're scheming, the guy to avoid. well, then maybe he will get his hands on more footballs and look more like the guy that he was before. Plus, if he's really buying in this coaching staff as much as he made it seem like today when he talked to us, I think that's a big thing, because back when he was having a lot of success, he really loved playing for Vic Fangio and Ed Donatel. And I think that part of it's been missing for him the last couple of seasons, too.
Adam, been too long. Great stuff. Thank you so much, and keep killing it at CHGO.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. Have a good day.